So we're at the ceremony. I'm super pumped up because we have a complete wedding here to go through with a bride, a groom, an officiant, some wedding guests. It's outdoors, so the lighting's beautiful, but the lighting's not always gonna be beautiful. Sometimes you're gonna show up and there's gonna be harsh light, there's gonna be mixed light, maybe it's a sunset wedding, so you always have to be prepared with proper lighting and most importantly, proper sound, because the most important thing we're trying to get out of the ceremony is audio for our film. So I'm gonna make this as easy as I can for you. I'm gonna walk you through step by step exactly how we cover a wedding ceremony. My coverage for a wedding ceremony is not gonna change 99% of the time. Now I'm gonna bring in the cast, the bride, the groom, the officiant, everybody, and let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is audio for the ceremony. This is really, really important. On my team, I have designated Jessica as a primary audio person that's responsible for recording great sound from the ceremony. Now I'm noticing at this ceremony, they're using a wireless handheld microphone. This is a great situation because I know during the ceremony, the officiant's going to be holding that mic right up to her mouth. What I need to do is I need to get her to hold up that microphone to the bride and the groom so I can get some great quality sound. Now this microphone that they're going to be using, this is your transmitter. And basically what's happening is this is transmitting a signal over to a receiver. Now that receiver for sure is going to be over by the DJ or this sound person. You need to find the receiver, you need to talk to the DJ and get them to buy into this concept of you introducing a splitter into the mix. This splitter has absolutely no bearing on the signal that the DJ is trying to use to project out to the guests. What we're trying to do is we're trying to be independent from the DJ. So we're not recording any interference from his board. Now let me explain to you how this splitter works. So what we need to do is this cable that's plugged into his XLR mic input, it's coming from that receiver. We need to get the DJ or sound person to disconnect this so we can plug it into the input side of our splitter. Very fast, that's taken less than 5 seconds. Off the back end, we've got these two outputs. One's gonna go to our field recorder, which I'm gonna simply plug in. And this is all extremely fast. The other output is simply gonna go back to where we took that XLR out from the receiver. So the DJ's got a direct signal, we've got a direct signal that we're recording, and I'm happy. But what happens if you show up to this situation and there is no sound system in place? This has actually happened to me several times. This is why I tell you, you have to show up prepared with proper sound equipment, because in that instance, we're gonna have to introduce our own. So we make sure to have a few wireless lav mics in our kit to cover these cases, as well as a handheld wireless mic, and at times even a mic stand. We're totally set up, we're ready to go, everything sounds great. Now let's shoot this event. Now I want to get some establishing shots of the venue. Now here's the thing, I typically do not even use the drone on the day of the wedding, believe it or not, because it's too chaotic and I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to actually use the drone. So a lot of times you're gonna see me use the drone the day before the wedding and even the day after the wedding. Now the thing about the drone is you should not own one of these things before you have invested in the essentials, obviously, right? Proper camera, proper lenses, lighting, proper sound, and then start looking to the toys that are going to raise your production value. But certainly do not invest in something like this before you have invested in the essentials that you need to shoot the job. Because if you think about it, these drone shots, they only account for what? Maybe like 1 or 2 shots in the film, but you're gonna rely on lighting and audio for about 98% of the film. So you have to invest in those things first. Now, I don't want you to force these drone shots. If you get up in the air and things do not look good, do not force the shots. Don't be shy about just landing the drone and going in a different direction. If things don't look good because of maybe cars, trucks, a lot of times you're gonna see these trucks that are coming in with florals, they look ugly. There's gonna be cranes, stuff like that. If it's gonna detract from the film, I'm not gonna use the drone. Here you've got a lot of greens, so I'm assuming these drone shots are gonna look really, really nice. So I'm here with my assistant, Anthony, who's also my licensed drone pilot. I don't want to fly the drone because I will literally crash the drone. So I've got Anthony flying this drone. He's gonna get me some amazing shots. So right now, we're gonna put this in the sky. I wanna take a look at the location and get some epic establishing shots of this venue. All right, so basically what's gonna happen here is, obviously I'm not flying the drone, but I do wanna direct the shot. So I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna take a look at Anthony's screen. Anthony, what do you have? How's it look? How's your exposure?
Good. Histogram's right here.
Okay, so listen, the most important thing here and throughout the day is gonna be your exposures. You gotta have proper exposure, especially with this camera that's mounted on this drone. You're not gonna have a lot of latitude in post to try to bring back details either in your whites or your blacks. So you have to kind of nail these exposures. Exposure looks good. We can see the detail in all the whites. Now, Anthony, what I want you to do is I want you to pull far back over these trees, and I want to get a shot creeping up to the venue here. We don't need a ton of shots, but I want to leave here with at least 3 or 4 different looks of the venue and the surrounding location. This looks amazing because you've got all these trees, you got all these greens. This is very picturesque. This is an ideal situation for drone establishing shots. Okay, that's looking really good. I'm liking this. Okay, so the cool thing about this particular drone is you can actually program the flight and do like a point of interest shot. We're gonna set this up, Anthony.
Okay.
I want to do a point of interest, and I want to loop around this venue, revealing the greens and everything that's beautiful that's surrounding the venue. Okay, so we're at the ceremony. Everything looks great. I've got my team in place. They've got my instructions. I've already assessed the situation here. I've looked into lighting. I've looked into audio. Everything's set up. Now we got to get into camera roles and responsibilities, and I want to talk about that right now. So the first thing that I'm going to have is I'm going to have Jessica, who's my main shooter, like I discussed before, is always going to be set up on a tripod with a 70-200 lens. The reason that I want this lens is she's responsible for the main shot of the officiant and the bride during the vows and ring exchange. My shot, which is going to be the number 2 shot, is going to be the center camera. Now the lens I choose, it's going to depend on the length of the aisle. If I have a longer aisle, I'm going to get set up on a 70-200 or a 135 lens, but I'm always going to have a 24-70 lens to give me a wider looking shot. And also there's going to be times during the ceremony where maybe the photographer doesn't want to shoot as long, and maybe the photographer wants to move up. So I want to be able to move up side by side with the photographer. I do not want a situation where the photographer is going to move in front of my lens. I own every Canon lens imaginable, so I can literally move with this photographer side by side at all times, and we don't have to be in each other's shots. The other thing I'm going to have back here, I'm going to have a gimbal. Now, I'm not looking to be creative during the ceremony. The only thing we're looking for the ceremony is to be solid, because the most important thing we're trying to pull out of the ceremony is the dialogue. I need the vows and ring exchange, and I need great audio. So if it's a short ceremony, I'm not even thinking about doing anything creative. But if it's a longer ceremony, maybe the ceremony is like 60 minutes or 90 minutes, and I'm just kind of sitting around not doing too much, I'm gonna grab the gimbal and I'm gonna look for a creative shot. But remember, don't force any of your shots. Just like we talked about with the drone, if it doesn't look good, don't use it. But obviously, like let's say you're inside of a church and everything looks amazing and you have amazing architecture on the walls and the ceiling and things like that, I'm definitely gonna take advantage. I'm gonna grab the gimbal and I'm gonna get a few epic shots of the interior of the church, okay? Or in this case, it's very picturesque. So I think it's gonna be an amazing shot, and it's gonna add some value to our ceremony. Now, Anthony's set up over here. The only time that I'm really gonna use Anthony is for vows and ring exchange. Outside of that, I need him making me quicker, okay? Especially if it's low light or if it's a nighttime ceremony, he's actually gonna be lighting for me and always kind of ensure that my shot is looking spectacular at all times. Now, if it's light out like this, nice soft light, and it's not a low lit situation where I need light, now I'm gonna kind of free him up. My instructions to Anthony is gonna be, don't give me any basic lockdown shots. I want you to get me some shots, but I want you to kind of think outside the box. I want some creative type of shots. So now I'm really taking advantage of Anthony, because I know Jessica's shot, it's not gonna be the most creative shot in the world, but it's gonna be that solid shot that I need at all times of the officiant, the vows, and the ring exchange. And I also have a solid shot, obviously, with my center camera. Okay, so we got about 5 or 10 minutes before guests start arriving. What I wanna do right now is I wanna use this gimbal to get a couple wide shots here. It looks very picturesque. And I also wanna go in and get some tight detail shots of the flowers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my team pull back so they're not in the shot. Jessica, just come back here. Anthony, come back here. Now, if you notice, there's also some DJ equipment back there. I do not wanna get any junk in my frame. So maybe I'm gonna work a different angle for these wide shots. So let's see how this looks. Now remember, exposure is gonna be key here. You do not wanna blow out your highlights. Here, the easiest thing that I do is I try to expose for the sky. And on the wide shots, that generally works out pretty well. Let's see how this looks. I like doing some high to low stuff. So I'm gonna start high and I'm gonna come down low. And what you wanna do here to kind of stay steady is try to walk heel to toe, and I've got that shot. If you're not pressed for time, try it a couple different ways. One of the other things that I'll do with the gimbal is I'll start back here and I'll kind of just fly over the chairs and see how that looks. So we can try a couple different looks. One of the things that I try to do with the gimbal is I try to do the movements as slow as possible. Usually when gimbal movements are really fast, they're a little bit jarring depending what direction you're going with your film. Now, if you do it nice and slow, you can always ramp up the speed later if need be. Now, since I've exposed for the sky, the details in the flowers probably went underexposed a little bit. So what I wanna do now is I wanna come up here. I'm gonna get one last wide shot. Just coming down the center. Again, I'll do some high to low stuff and just be creative. Think outside the box, visualize a little bit, and I'll just creep forward just like that. I'm gonna try to get some of this detail in the flowers. Now, when you're this close with the lens, you're gonna have to kind of pre-focus, or if you have a camera that's got the face detection autofocus, you can kind of focus in on the flowers and just achieve your shot that way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on manual and I'm gonna manually focus this. Okay, so I'm tighter here. I'm manually focused. And now I'm just gonna come in here and get a nice tight pan down shot. But right here, I'm exposing for the flowers. Okay, I'm not necessarily exposing for the sky because I'm not wide anymore. I'm nice and tight on all the details in this floral arrangement, okay? Guests are getting ready to arrive right now. Now I'm gonna get with my team, make sure they're on the same page, and we're gonna move forward with the ceremony. Okay, so the guests are gonna arriving, and I want these shots to look good, and I need this content because it's gonna add some impact to the story. It's gonna complete the story of the procession and the ceremony and all that. Now, I need to determine what side looks the best based on this camera because this is my wide shot. Now I'm noticing on this side, there's a parking lot there, it doesn't look great, and I also have the DJ console over here, and that doesn't look great. But when I look to this side, it's all green, it's all very picturesque. So I want to be shooting this way, which means I got to tell my team, Jessica, Anthony, you need to move over to the left side. So they're all going to be shooting from the left side. And actually that's going to be throughout, not just the guest arrival, but also the procession. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so this looks great. I've got a nice wide shot with the venue in the background. And I'm actually going to track them all the way around. And everything looks great because I don't have any junk in the background. Now for this couple, I don't want the shot to look exactly the same. So maybe I'm going to get them passing the camera. And they're going to pass right by. And then for this set of guests, I'm probably going to track them, sidetrack them, and just kind of follow them to their seats. And that would pretty much be it for guest arrival. Now I need to get set up with my team and get ready for the procession. Typically for the procession, I'm going to pick up the gimbal to add some movement to these shots. Jessica's in position with that 70-200 to capture everyone as they make their way down the aisle. If Anthony isn't assisting me, he'll be roaming, looking for those interesting creative shots. The important thing here is your exposure. You have to watch your exposure because right now the sun is really harsh. So right now, the best man and the mother of the bride is going to come out. Something really interesting. Follow them around. Make sure there's no junk in the background. That looked really good. Exposures are nice. Now we have the officiant coming down. Nothing huge here, guys. Just nice, solid shooting. I'm using the gimbal to add some interest to the shot, just add some motion. And you don't have to stick to the one shot. You can kind of switch it up and maybe get her walking through the frame. So remember, once she's kind of exited the building and you have that shot for about 3 to 5 seconds, now switch to a different shot, especially if it's a situation like this where they have a long aisle. You can literally get like 2-3 shots out of the same one aisle for each person or couple that comes down the aisle. Now we have the groom coming out. This is a really, really important shot. Please make sure you're recording. Now you have the shot. This is about 3 to 5 seconds already. So now I can turn and grab a different angle and get him kind of walking into my frame. So now I have 2 very interesting shots, but actually I've got a third shot with Jessica because she's going to be getting the front angle 70-200. If I happen to miss my shot, Jessica's my safety cam. Okay, so the procession is going to continue. I've got the best man and maid of honor coming out. This is going to be pretty much the same thing, but we're getting closer and closer to the bride coming out now. You have to pay attention to this stuff. Make sure you're recording. Let them walk in and out of my frame. Okay, so here comes the bride and her father. This is the money shot. Make sure you're recording. Sometimes you'll hit that record button and it's not recording, so please double check. Here comes the bride and her father. This looks amazing. Hopefully they're walking at a very nice pace and not running. And now I can even do like a high to low and come down and reveal both of them. This looks really good. And right now, Jessica's already picked up the shot. She's shooting 70-200, nice and tight. I'm getting all the emotions in the face. And now Anthony's gonna come over here very quickly because I have to cradle this gimbal. And what he's gonna do for me to save me some time, because all this initial stuff is very important. I wanna be able to capture that stuff. So he's gonna frame it up, make sure it's in focus, and most importantly, make sure it's properly exposed. So by the time I cradle this gimbal, I can simply just walk over here and pretty much this is ready to go that fast. You don't want to miss any of that stuff because it's literally just me and Jessica filming the ceremony. So I don't want to miss anything that's going on. And a lot of times Jessica's still making adjustments and she's still trying to move around up there and make some room. Sometimes you're going to have larger bridal parties, so it's going to get a little bit challenging. So now we both have the plan. She's going to shoot tight on the officiant and tight on the bride for the vows and the ring exchange. Now when Jessica's up there, she's also getting cutaways of the audience. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm really just focused on the 3-shot. Okay, so basically I have this shot here. It's framed up, it's focused, exposure is on point, but it's a little bit too tight. I have a long lens on here, it's a 135, but this is a very short aisle. So I need to either move back or throw a wider lens on here. I love the look of the long lens, so it's my preference to just move back with the same 135 lens on there. But before I move this camera, I need to look over at Jessica and see what she's doing. It's only the two of us filming this event, so I need to make sure that she's not also moving her camera. So me and Jessica have a silent communication thing that we do, and it's very simple. If I look over at Jessica and she's got her hands to her side, that means I can go ahead and take this camera, move it back, frame it up. Now we're on grass, so you want to make sure you have a level shot. Use your leveler, and now this looks a lot better. And I'm just gonna hold this shot now. And basically while I'm holding this shot, what's Jessica's role up there? She's basically focusing in on the officiant. She's got a nice, tight, intimate shot with the 70-200, and that's basically her shot. Now, during the ceremony, she may look over and say, you know what? I've got a shot of the officiant, and Ray's also got a shot of the officiant. So what is Jessica gonna do? She's gonna take advantage of the time and start looking for some content. So she may turn her camera from up there and start getting some B-roll shots from the audience. Okay, once she's done with that, she's gonna be back on the officiant. I'm gonna recognize that, and that's kind of my cue if I need to move, and I'm probably even gonna go further back. I kind of like this long look down this aisle. I'm gonna come here, she's not moving. I'm gonna re-level the shot. And now I'm really happy with the shot. Okay, so I've framed up the shot, everything looks great. It's in focus, it's properly exposed. Now in terms of exposure, you gotta be really, really careful here because the sunlight is really harsh right now. One of the things that I do is I like to see the detail in the whites of the bride's dress. So I'm looking at my viewfinder right here, everything looks great. I've got my reference audio here, even though Jessica has already set up the primary audio, now we're all set. Okay, so during a ceremony, I'm basically just here monitoring my team and my camera, obviously. But what happens if it's a long ceremony? What if the ceremony runs over? What if the ceremony's like 60 minutes or 90 minutes and I'm literally just standing here not doing that much? I want to take advantage of time. So one of the things that I'm going to do is, since I have this gimbal, I'm going to come over here to the gimbal and I'm going to try to get something creative, because not a lot's going on right now. They could be doing communion, they could be singing Ave Maria or something like this. So I want to take advantage of time. Remember, the ceremony is all about being solid, but if I have an opportunity to get some eye candy for the film, I want to take advantage. So let's see what we got now. Check your exposure, most importantly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this gimbal and I'm just going to do a high to low. I love doing high to lows. And this just adds some additional impact to the film. You could be in a church where the architecture is like really interesting and you want to be able to get all that. That's why I like the high to low stuff. Out here, it's like full of greens, very picturesque. So you want to take advantage of this opportunity. If they're still not going into the vows and the ring exchange, I'm just going to keep getting some creative looking shots. I'm just going to kind of think outside the box. Maybe I'm going to come over the top of chairs and just look for some additional eye candy. One thing you got to remember is I have a long lens on this center camera. So even though I'm coming into the center aisle with a couple of these creative shots, I'm not necessarily in my center camera's view because it's shooting long. You don't necessarily have to shoot from the center. You can shoot off center. And if you look at my camera right now in the position on the tripod, I'm actually shooting off center. I'm not in the center. This does two things. It might provide me like a really cool looking shot, and also let's say a photographer wanted to get in here and get a nice center wide shot, and the photographer wanted to center themselves right down the middle. They can do that. It's all about teamwork here. It's all about teamwork. So now they're gonna jump into the vows and the ring exchange. I need to cradle this. I still have my center shot, and Jessica's still up there with the main shot on the officiant. What Jessica's gonna do is, for the vows and the ring exchange, her primary focus right now is gonna be the bride. Anthony's gonna come around monopod. Now the monopod, I only recommend the monopod outdoors if you're really solid on the monopod. It gets really tricky, especially if it's windy out. And really, if you're on a tripod, it's gonna give you more time to kind of just set the camera, level it, get in focus, check your exposure, and get the shot. If you're on a monopod, it gets really tricky. Anthony on my team, he loves to shoot with the monopod. It makes him quicker. It makes him less intrusive. So he kind of sticks with the monopod. Just be careful. If you're the type that's maybe had too much coffee, or you get nervous, your hands shake, maybe you don't want to use the monopod. You want to kind of transition to a tripod for that shot, because you don't want a really solid shot of the bride and then your groom angle shot just looks like a complete mess, basically. One of the things that I'm really concerned about is the audio for the vows and the ring exchange. Obviously, we've got the cameras in position. We're ready to go. They're framed up, exposure's on point. We're in focus, but it's where they stand that can create a problem. So I had a conversation with the bride and groom just before the ceremony. I also had a conversation with the officiant. So my conversation with the bride and groom was just to make them understand that in this particular case, the bride is not wearing a lav mic. So we're actually relying on the groom's mic to pick up her vows and ring exchange. So what I want them to do is kind of stand a little bit closer together, hold hands, don't block the officiant. And then I also talk to the officiant. This is gonna be key. And I'm hoping the officiant is gonna remember what I asked her, because I'm gonna ask you for a huge favor.
All right.
During the vows and the ring exchange, can you remember to hold up the mic for the bride and the groom?
I can do that.
Awesome, because we want to be able to record the bride's vows and the ring exchange and showcase that in the film. Is that fine?
Winner.
Okay. An even better situation would be if the officiant could hand the mic to the bride and groom as they're doing their vows. That way you don't get the arm kind of reaching across the face and things like that. So hopefully she's going to remember. They're going to jump right into the vows and the ring exchange, and we're going to run through their personal vows. Now I've got my center shot set up. I've got Jessica's angle, and I've got Anthony ready for the groom angle. I'm all framed up. I got a really nice shot. It's a medium wide shot. Now on these medium to wide shots, I want to see all the fingertips, okay? I'm just gonna kind of wait. Now right now I'm hoping that the officiant's gonna remember to hand over that handheld mic to the bride and groom so I can get that great audio. They got the handheld mic. That means we're gonna get fantastic audio. This is great. All right, so right now, look, they're doing the vows. What's gonna come next? Ring exchange. But I don't wanna get too complacent on this camera right now because I know the kiss is coming, all right? What's gonna happen when we do the kiss? Once they're done with the vows and ring exchange, I'm gonna take this camera here with the long lens and I'm gonna move it off center. And I'm gonna get ready to grab that gimbal because I wanna be able to do the recessional right next to the photographer. Okay, so we're gonna grab this gimbal and very quickly, I'm gonna turn it on and I wanna set my exposure. Make sure you're in focus. Everything looks great. And here comes the end of the ceremony. Good thing about this, I'm gonna have two angles from the center of the kiss and the recessional. And here they come. This looks really great. Look at all this interaction. Look at all these emotions. And now they're just gonna come down the center. And this was amazing. And now you can just keep getting the rest of the recessional very quickly. Let them walk in and out of the frame. And that's pretty much the end of the ceremony.